As I was trembling with a heavy tray of drinks, a hurried guest suddenly bumped into me, causing my entire tray to drop right on the ground. Immediately, the hostess shouted,
Helen, you're fired!
I kept apologizing to her, saying that my mom was in the hospital, so I really needed this job, but she still kicked me out mercilessly. Feeling guilty, the guest earlier said,
I'm so sorry, young lady. If you want, you can come to my place. I'll arrange a new job for you.
After that, he gave me a note with his home address and left. Hi, I'm Helen. I'm 16 years old. When I was a child, my dad left me while my sick mom was hospitalized all the time. Every day, I had to study and work until late at night to be able to cover the huge amount of hospital bills. After receiving the home address, I went straight there. It was a gorgeous mansion. The guest from yesterday appeared and it turned out it was James Smith, a wealthy tycoon. When James and I were talking, suddenly a drunk girl came in. James grumbled.
Jenny, partying again? You should have been ashamed of your poor test scores for the Fairmont Academy entrance exam.
Fairmont Academy? I just got a scholarship for it recently. An idea popped up in my mind. Sir, if you want to improve your daughter's grades, I can also tutor her. With that said, I showed him my Fairmont scholarship and James promptly agreed to my offer. But Jenny was a different story. She rolled her eyes and bared her fangs. Listen, new face. 9 self-declared tutors have come here, and they've all been fired. Get ready to be the 10th. After that, she coldly left the room. James comforted me.
It's okay, Helen. If you can help her increase her grades, I'll definitely reward you.
I thanked him and promised to start tutoring Jenny. But it was difficult, just like what Jenny said. She kept coming up with weird tricks so she wouldn't have to learn. For example, she would hide her books or pretend to be sick every time I started class. Once, as soon as I arrived, I saw Jenny dancing at the swimming pool. When I came to her, she angrily shouted, I'm not studying! Just leave! I turned off the music and firmly told her to come inside to start the lesson. Angrily, she rushed over and pushed me straight into the pool. It made my books and laptop wet. However, she just threw a bunch of money on me and snickered. This is enough for you to buy 2 more laptops! Get the hell out of here! Furiously, I told all of that to her dad. Needless to say, James was furious and called Jenny into the room.
Jenny, as of tomorrow, you will transfer to Lockwood High in Canada.
What? That uptight and remote school?
Correct. If I can't teach you, Lockwood will.
Jenny burst into tears of resentment and left. As for me, James sent me my payment and promised to arrange a different job for me. However, the money was still far from enough to pay for my mom's hospital bills. While I was not knowing what to do, suddenly my phone rang. It was Jenny. She asked me out to talk. Contrary to her usual stuck-up attitude, Jenny desperately begged me to go to Canada to study on her behalf. In return, she would pay for my mother's hospital bills. I was surprised but also worried. But what if your dad knows about this? And what about the paperwork? I'm rich. I can take care of those minor stuff. Just say yes and someone will come and take you to Lockwood High. I decided to agree, but on one condition. She would have to replace me to study at Fairmont Academy. I couldn't just drop out like that, and she also agreed. Later that day, I said goodbye to my mom and began my journey to Canada. After a week of studying, I gradually got used to my new life. It was quite challenging indeed. One day, while walking in the hallway, I saw Kelly, a notorious classmate of mine who was cornering another girl. Oh, a small country girl like you also comes here to study? You should have stayed at home and worked as a janitor like your mother. That's so mean! I must help that poor girl. I quickly walked past them and shoved my Starbucks at Kelly. What the hell is wrong with you, Jenny? Do you know how much this Chanel dress costs? Oh, sorry, my hand slipped. She angrily raised her hand to slap me, but she was abruptly stopped by Alan, the class's hottest boy.
Come on, Kelly. You were bullying the other girl first.
Kelly was so frustrated that she left immediately. I wanted to comfort the other girl, but she had also run away. Only Alan and I remained. Somehow we hit it off and became very close after that. One day, I came to class earlier than usual and saw Kelly doing something suspicious to the classroom door. With a bad premonition, I hid in a corner and overheard her whole plan. Good. Let's see who runs this school, Jenny. So when she wasn't paying attention, I swiftly entered the classroom through the back door. I was proudly crossing my arms and sneered at her angry face when suddenly the teacher opened the door and walked in. In a flash, a basket of fake snakes fell straight on her head. Both Kelly and I panicked while the teacher screamed at the top of her lungs and fainted. I hurriedly shouted for the whole class to take her to the infirmary. As for Kelly, she was punished soon after. She had to clean the toilet for 2 months in a row. Haha, serves that witch right. One day, Lockwood High held an auction to raise funds for the Halloween festival. My role was to wear a beautiful white dress for the guests to bid on, while Alan was the host. Very quickly, the dress was bidded to 50 very quickly. The dress, I was super excited to see who was the bidder, but to my horror, Kelly appeared. She walked onto the stage to the applause of everyone. Kelly stood in front of me and smirked. This is truly a work of art. But it'll be even more beautiful when... Before she finished her sentence, Kelly pulled out a paint gun and shot at me repeatedly. The beautiful white dress quickly turned into a disaster to the panic of the guests. With a stroke of genius, Alan quickly came to the rescue.
How utterly amazing and creative, isn't it? Can you see, ladies and gentlemen? Each streak of color makes the dress look like a Van Gogh painting.
The audience gasped and applauded loudly. They said the dress was like an abstract artwork and even pushed the price higher than the price Kelly had bidded. But before I could rejoice, I suddenly saw James in the audience. Oh my god, why is he here? I panicked and ran off the stage, but that witch Kelly tripped me. I stumbled and got entangled in the microphone wire and pulled the entire speaker system down. They fell on both Kelly and me, and we slowly lost consciousness. As the sun rays hit my eyes, I slowly woke up. Luckily, the accident didn't cause too much damage to me. In the room, there was only an extremely angry man standing in silence. Great, I'm screwed. I explained the whole story to James. Fortunately, he understood and quickly resolved the paperwork to bring me home. On the way home, I turned to ask him what he would do with Jenny. He said in desperation,
I don't know. She's too spoiled.
Suddenly, I came up with a plan and quickly told James. With a wink to him, I called her. Jenny, bad news! Your dad has found out about us switching places and had a heart attack. He was transferred to the ER. What? How could that be? Just go to the hospital. When Jenny arrived, she burst into tears when she saw her father on the bed. Since he was promoted, he was too busy with work and we've become so distant. We never even spoke to each other more than 3 sentences ever since. Jenny hugged her father and cried until James winked at me. This play could come to an end now. He slowly sat up and patted Jenny's shoulder, who was now drenched in tears. She looked up, screaming in panic as if she had seen a ghost. I quickly covered Jenny's mouth so that James could explain.
My dearest, I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. I tried to make it up by giving you more money, more beautiful clothes. But apparently, it wasn't enough. You were lonely, right?
In the end, their misunderstanding. Jenny stopped acting stubborn and snobbish, and the two of them spent more time together. After everything, funny as it is, Jenny and I started to become close. James was kind enough to adopt me and promised to help me pay for my school fees and my mom's hospital bills. One day, I was tutoring Jenny when suddenly the doorbell rang. I ran out to see who it was when, to my surprise, it was Alan. He hugged me tightly.
I finally found you, Helen. Will you be my girlfriend?
Saying that, Alan leaned forward. Just like that, we kissed passionately in the first breeze of fall.
Hey, I'm Linda, and I will tell you about how my class was locked up at school for 2 days. You will soon get to know how that happened. Once, a part of our class was invited to school on a day off to prepare it for the upcoming ballroom dance competition among schoolchildren of our district. Why was our class chosen? Well, because we are the most active and creative ones. I was on the list of those who were invited to prepare the outfits that we planned to show in between the performances of dancers. In total, there were 8 of us, plus a teacher. We turned on some good music, and everyone started doing their own thing. It was interesting, so we had fun. Soon, a teacher ran into the hall and started screaming that there was a flood. It looked like a scene from a movie. Everyone rushed to the window and saw a huge stream of water in which there were floating cars, trees, part of houses, and also some trash. I wanted to run home, but the teacher stopped me and said that would be suicide. We had to climb to the top floor of the school and wait for help there. On the 4th floor, there was a cafeteria, so we quickly ran there. Of course, everyone tried to call their families, but nobody had phone service. It was so scary. We asked the teacher what was going on, and she said that she had no answer to the question at that moment, but she tried to get us to stay calm and follow her instructions. Stay calm? Where are our parents? What happened to them? When will they find us? When will this flood be over? Where did all the water come from? We were gripped by panic and started crying. Then we went to look out of the windows. A little later, we calmed down a bit and began to talk about how powerless we were before the forces of nature. It seemed as if our fears and unfulfilled dreams, together with our lives, were floating around down there. When at last we came to our senses, we saw our teacher taking food supplies from cabinets in the cafeteria and laying them out on the tables. She said that no one knew how long we'd have to be there, so we needed to ration the products, which were very few. We had several snack packs, a few cucumbers, half a loaf of bread, and some raw potatoes. But there was a lot of drinking water, so the teacher reminded us that when we drink more water, we feel less hungry. We grabbed a bite and continued to watch what was going on from the windows. Susie was standing next to me, and we were thinking about what we would change if we knew that tomorrow would be the end of the world. At that moment, I saw my parents' car, which was totally destroyed, floating under the windows of our school. I could not be mistaken because there was the logo and advertisement of our family store on it. That meant that there were no other cars like it. And the worst thing is that in the passenger seat, I saw a human silhouette. "Mom! Mommy!" I started shouting, and then a teacher and other students ran up to me. They saw our car, saw the human silhouette, and tried to calm me down. But no, there couldn't be a mistake. My mother always sat in the passenger seat. What had I lived through at that moment? The ground shifted beneath my feet. I no longer saw the point in salvation. I'm here sharing the remains of food with classmates, and my mother died inside the car. I stopped hearing things around me, so my classmates decided not to bother me and gave me some time so that I could pull myself together. As night fell, there was no electricity in the school, and it was cold and gloomy in there. Gradually, the batteries in our phones began to run out, and just a single candle that we found in the cafeteria was warming up our souls. And what's worse is that we only had 2 raw potatoes and 1 small bag of cookies left. In the morning, we all dozed off, and when we woke up, we found that the last of the food supplies were gone. Who would do that? Who dared to think only about themselves in such a situation? We tried to find out, but unfortunately, this turned out to be impossible. There was no evidence or clues. We decided to let it go, but regardless, we were left with an unpleasant feeling. It was hard to think that there was a traitor among us. The whole day we were suspiciously looking at each other and didn't really talk to each other. But then we decided to relieve tension by playing the alphabet game. This cheered us up a little bit. However, I still could not stop thinking about losing my mom and was worried about my dad. I hope he survived. In the evening, Max fell sick. His temperature rose and he had nausea. We were very worried about him, but could not help him as we didn't even have a first aid kit. Then he admitted that it was he who had eaten our food supplies. He saw mold in the bag of cookies, but was so hungry that it didn't stop him, so he got food poisoning. He seemed to have gotten what he deserved, but we still felt sorry for him anyway. We also feared that he would start feeling worse before we would all be saved. The next day, the flow of water had stopped, and this cheered us up. This meant that help would soon come. But we were so hungry that all our thoughts were only about food. We could no longer look at water. Fortunately, there were no problems with it at school. In the evening, we saw a lifeboat and started screaming. Hooray, they'd seen us! But rescuers asked us to wait a little longer until a helicopter would arrive to pick us up. By that time, Max already felt much better, and we were patiently waiting for a meeting with our parents and eating our lunch. The helicopter arrived the next morning, and we were taken to a temporary shelter for flood victims. It turned out that there was a dam failure in our city, and this was the reason for the disaster. Our parents met us at the shelter. They were there too. I could not believe my eyes when I saw my mom safe and sound. It turned out that my father took a mannequin from our store on that day in order to take photos of several new models of dresses that my mother had sewn the day before. When the flood began, the mannequin was in the car, and I mistook it for my mother. Oh, how happy I was at that moment. It was a real miracle for me. It was also a miracle that there were no flood victims in our city. My classmates were glad to see their loved ones and eat delicious food. As for Max, he had punished himself. When we were eating food, he was put on an IV drip and cursed that bag of cookies. Have you ever been a victim of the forces of nature? Tell us in the comments if you are afraid of hurricanes, floods, and earthquakes. Click the thumbs up button under the video and subscribe to our channel to be the first to watch our new stories.